and investigating almost every stone that I raised, I found a Jew beneath it. That if you look on the Christians in the Galilee, you will find the purest Jewish blood on earth.
Yep, I'm doing it. And I'm doing it now. And no one is going to like what I have to say. I had other videos I wanted to do. I got one about Zab Judah recorded already, but not doing that right now. Got a Mafia video on the back burner. We'll get to it eventually. Honestly, my last video ended up being so controversial, even though I hoped it wouldn't. We're going to get controversy with whatever, so leaning into it this time. We're doing this. I will say, please don't interpret any of this as a political prescription. Though I know you probably will. Please cease fire post haste if you want to know what I think, but I know you don't. Okay, let's go. So in the midst of all this lost tribes talk and diaspora detective work, we often overlook the most obvious place to look for the descendants of ancient Israelites. Israel. By which I mean the territories once occupied by the historic Kingdom of Israel, which has been known by many other names throughout the years, including Palestine. Don't flame me, please. I'm not going to do that every time. Just assume there's like a nervous clarification after I say anything you disagree with. Anyway, I've always thought that the most likely location for the majority of lost Jews was the Middle East. And the most reasonable explanation for their being lost is that they converted to Islam. A few definitely converted to Christianity as well, of course, but Christianity really only took off in Europe after Constantine. Also, Christianity's like just a fundamentally very different religion than Judaism and Islam, despite all being Abrahamic. Scorched earth, baby! We're pissing everyone off today. Regardless, this is what I believe, and there's some pretty decent evidence for it. So, yeah, let's do history. I'll power through the pre-Islamic stuff. So, Israelites split off from Canaanites sometime in the 2nd millennium BCE. The name Israel first appears in the stele of Pharaoh Merneptah in 1209 BCE, saying, quote, Israel is laid waste, and his seed is not. The United Kingdom of Israel forms in the 10th and 9th centuries BCE. By 930 BCE, the kingdom had split into the kingdoms of Judah in the south and Israel in the north. Israel is the more powerful kingdom. In the 700s BC, Israel is at war with the Neo-Assyrian Empire, who conquer them, destroy the capital of Samaria in 722 BCE, and take a large number of the kingdom's inhabitants deep into the empire. Many survivors flee to Judah, which increases their strength. Assyria invades them. Their records say King Sennacherib leveled 46 walled cities and besieged Jerusalem before receiving tribute. So Judah becomes an Assyrian vassal state, which they do okay under, but towards the end of the 7th century, Assyria collapses, and Judah is now alone between the two old world powers, Egypt and the Neo-Babylonian Empire. The population at the time is estimated around 350,000. In 586 BCE, the Babylonians conquer Judah, destroy the first temple, and take more captives into their empire. Under Babylon, as the province of Yehud Medinata, the population and economy crash. The people had to rethink their beliefs as God hadn't protected the Davidic dynasty from ruin. Also, according to the Elephantine Papyrus, there is a significant Judean and Samaritan population in Egypt at this time, originating in the mid-7th century BC, when Jewish mercenaries came over to support one of the pharaohs. Awesome. They even had a temple. Awesomer. When the Assyrian and Babylonians diasporaed everyone, many Jews fled there. In 538 BCE, Cyrus the Great, and boy do we love him, conquers Babylon and allows 50,000 Jews to return and rebuild the Second Temple. Judah remains an Achaemenid province until 332 BCE. Yep, great time. In 332 BCE, the area is conquered by Alexander the Great, who is not as great as my guy Cyrus, in my opinion, but I guess he was a better conqueror. Alex dies 10 years later, and Judea becomes a buffer state between the Seleucid and Ptolemaic empires, until it was conquered outright in 198 BCE. The Seleucids are cool at first until 174 BCE, when they attempt to ban Judaism. Judah Maccabee revolts, Hanukkah happens, begone Greeks, boom. Independent kingdom under the Hasmonean dynasty. Unfortunately, without a powerful master, the Romans move in, there's a proxy war between Caesar and Pompey, Jerusalem is sacked, and suddenly in 64 BCE, Judea becomes a part of the Roman province of Syria. What to do? Well, do what works, which is, at this time, ask the Persians for help. In 40 BCE, with the help of the Parthian Empire, they drive out the Romans. Great! Uh-oh. The Romans back a Jewish king, Herod. There's a Jewish civil war. Boom. Back to being a Roman client state in 37 BCE. It's okay at first, but the Romans do what they do, which is Romanize, until the province is put under direct Roman rule, which is not good for Judean, Samaritan, and Galileans living there. Despite this, they're not getting diaspora anymore, and the population booms. The year is 66 CE, and there are over 2 million Jews in the area. Never again to be expelled. Psych! Like the least subtle. Psych. Jews revolt, giant war, Second Temple destroyed. Josephus writes that 1.1 million Jews die during the revolt and 97,000 are taken to the empire as captives. This is the era where Christianity splits off. I got a comment a little minute ago that said that Josephus invented Christianity. Is it true? I don't know, but it's cool. Okay, I know I said I would power through, but I'm caught up. I'm caught up in it now. We'll get back to the point eventually. Anyway, there's a Jewish revolt in North Africa in 115 that results in a crackdown for all Jews, which leads to a bigger revolt in 132. The Romans put it down at the cost of 580,000 Jewish lives, according to Cassius Dio. 30,000 are deported to Carthage, many more sold into slavery, Jerusalem is renamed, and Jews are not allowed in it. Blah, blah, blah. Rome is Christian. Byzantine split off in the 300s. More revolts, more deaths, more slaves. Interestingly, after the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, Christians move into the region in high numbers and, according to some sources, become the majority religion. Judaism is permitted, but not Samaritanism, who, if you've watched my Greek video, I believe that they are an offshoot of Judaism dating back to the Neo-Assyrian exile. But anyway, they revolt and are slaughtered by the Eastern Romans now. It is not a great time. Jews don't have rights. But what's this? Sassanid Persia to the rescue. The new Persian Empire invades the Byzantine Empire in 611, and a Jewish revolt breaks out to support them. They expel a bunch of Christians. However, this isn't Cyrus's Persia. Jews regain self-rule for 3 years until the Sassanids revoke it, destroy synagogues, and impose heavy taxes. When the Byzantines reconquer the area in 628, they promised to give Jews rights, but they also lied and massacred many population centers. Jews are once again banned from Jerusalem. So, interestingly, I don't know if this is true or if it's just a little weird story that somehow got attached to this. Christian clergy took responsibility for this broken promise, allegedly, and some Coptic monks still fast in penance. Which I love, if it's true. Love you, Copts. It's not your fault. Anyway, that aside, now we are finally here. The year is 638 CE. It's been tough, but fear not. Here comes Islam. Okay, let's take stock of everything before we continue. The majority of the population of this region is Jewish and Samaritan at that time. The Sassanids expelled the Christians, and so Jews and Samaritans regained the majority, but they were much reduced from its peak. Sources estimate that the Jewish population of Byzantine Palestine at this time is anywhere from 150,000 to 400,000. That's the easy part. Now let's look at the diaspora and where all the Jews ended up. We have the Assyrian deportation in 722 BCE, scattering the Israelites to the east, some going as far as potentially Southeast Asia, but definitely to modern-day Iran. We have the Babylonian captivity deporting significant parts of the population in the same direction in 586 BCE. After Cyrus the Great, Jews are allowed to return, but many stay in the empire, establishing the community which would later be called the Baghdadi Jews in Babylon. This would be the second city of Judaism during the Second Temple period. After Alexander the Okay, I guess, we enter the Hellenistic period. All these kingdoms, Greek. According to Josephus, Ptolemy took 120,000 Jewish captives to Egypt after he conquered Judea in the late 300s BCE, and more got spread when the Seleucids took it back. During this period, Jews also voluntarily migrated around the Mediterranean, as well as getting spread through the Seleucid Empire after several failed revolts. The Maccabee successful revolt, Romans take over all of the Western Jewish world, Pompey's campaign in 63 BCE, mass expulsions, many slaves spread throughout the Roman Empire, revolt in 53 BCE, more slaves, 37, civil war, more slaves, 70 CE, destruction of the Second Temple, big diaspora, the Kitos Revolt in 115 CE, North Africa. Massacres spread Jews all around. Bar Kokhba Revolt in 132 CE. There are more slaves. Roman life sucks. Emigration. Diaspora Jews far outnumber Palestinian Jews by this time, between 3 and 5 million, with the majority in Arabia, Southwest Asia, and North Africa. Byzantines, Constantine's conversion, miserable conditions, revolts, massacres, slaves, emigration, etc. Sorry, I powered through as much as I could. Okay, so we can see, while there are sizable Jewish communities in what has become the Christian world at this time, the vast majority live here, in a region ripe for some force to unite them, a force which is born in 570 CE in Mecca. So, I'm no Islamic scholar, and I don't want to be more infuriating than I am definitely already being. But at this time, a bunch of monotheistic Hanifs and downtrodden people are united by the teachings of Muhammad, at which point they overthrow the polytheistic aristocracy and unite the tribes of Arabia, beginning the Age of Islam. Jews, who were getting a raw deal from other empires at this time, are said to have helped Muslims in their conquests, particularly Abu Bakr as he moved into Sassanid and Byzantine lands. Not a moment too soon. Things were much better under Muslim rule. Jews were indeed second-class citizens, as a lot of people love to point out, but second-class citizens are still citizens, which is a significant upgrade. Paying the jizya is, in my humble opinion, a marked improvement from death and slavery. Jews would remain under Muslim rule for the next 1,300 years, with a brief exception. Okay, I'm definitely not going to get into the succession of the Prophet issue, so I'm just going to say the spread of Islam. I know it's not a block, but yeah. So the process of Arabization began throughout all the areas of Muslim conquest, and after the early period, the other rulers of this land, though no longer Arab, were still Muslim. There were the Mamluks, who were Turks, Ayyubids, who were Kurds, and Ottomans, who are Turks again. The exception was the Crusades, which, really only united Jews and Muslims. Middle Ages, the majority of Jews are living in the Muslim world, especially after every European country massacres and expels their Jews between 1290 and 1500. Okay. Mostly got it. That might have seemed like a huge, ridiculous tangent, and it mostly is, I'll be honest. I just wanted to make the connection that there are a lot of diaspora Jews who were put in a position where they were no longer being subjugated by their rulers and were instead offered social and economic benefits for converting. I've said before that the Hanifs sound suspiciously Jewy to me. This not only applied to the newly Muslim populations that moved into Palestine following the Muslim conquest of the Levant, but also the population already living there. I wanted to establish the historical record for when we discuss some of the more out there claims, and we will. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about the diaspora anymore because all of them will make for interesting videos in the future. But I will say that the slow assimilative conversion with, several periods of violence and forced conversion, no lie, is most likely the scenario that befell the majority of diaspora Jews. And many people, including myself, believe that this happened in Palestine too.
Hey, 42.2% Middle Eastern, 29.1% North African. I knew I'd get this. Marazi Jewish, Iranian/Iraqi. I mean, yes and no. I wasn't expecting the Jewish part. I wasn't. What? Where's? Okay, fine. I told you. North Africa. I knew it. I look Moroccan. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I am 53.7% West Asian, 19.7% North African. Not surprised, but kind of. I'm not surprised at where I'm from, but I'm surprised at the percentages.
Alright, let's do it. Dano. Yemenite Jewish. Hey, this is mad sick. Ethiopian Jewish. North African. They what I heard about. Nigeria. China. Say Allah. Middle Eastern and East African, yeah. I didn't expect to get North African and West African and European. European, bro. That's a madness.
So with the shoddy estimates that we do have, the global Jewish population fell from 8 million in the 1st century to 2 million by the 13th century. And, a lot of it was violence and stuff, but not all of it. So we do need to talk about conversions. So sources that I've seen say it usually wasn't forced, usually not in the region of Palestine. This is according to David Nichols' book on Islamic conquest. He says, I'll quote it. Quote, while conversion was merely encouraged elsewhere, in Central Arabia, now Saudi Arabia, non-Islamic communities completely disappeared. So, that being said, there were definitely periods of coerced conversion as well. In one of the recorded instances of forced conversion, the 1012 Al-Hakim Edict, it was decreed that all Jews and Christians who had previously been tolerated had to either convert or leave. I don't know how solid these numbers are, but the sources that I saw said that the majority of Christians left Palestine at this time, while over 90% of the Jews and Samaritans converted to Islam. When the edict was repealed by 1044, and it softened earlier, but repealed by 1044, only 27% of Jewish converts returned to practice, at least openly. Throughout the next 900 years of mostly Muslim rule, the Palestinian Jews and Samaritans remained a tiny minority. Diaspora Jews went through the trials and tribulations, but the community here stayed tiny and peaceful. Until Zionism kicked off, I am not getting into it. However, during the creation of Israel, before the whole thing was ideologically set, there was a lot of support for the idea that the Palestinians were the descendants of Jews and Samaritans on, both sides of the conflict. And it was discussed in a manner similar to how the Lebanese are descendants of Phoenicians and Egyptians are the descendants of ancient Egyptians. But since that establishes Palestinian legitimacy, surely the Israelis would want to dispel this as soon as possible, right? Actually, no. As I said, it was a different time before Israel was preoccupied with arguments about historical Palestinian legitimacy. Two of the biggest names in those early days, Yitzhak Ben-Zvi, second president of Israel, and David Ben-Gurion, first prime minister of Israel, were both pretty into it and wrote about it in books and pamphlets. Ben-Gurion allegedly, I don't speak Hebrew, wrote, quote, "If we investigate the origins of the Fellahin, there is no doubt that much Jewish blood runs in their veins." Okay, all of that brings us to this crazy guy named Misinai Tzvi. Actually, it's Tzvi Misinai, but his YouTube channel's the other way around. Anyway, this guy is a big proponent of Palestinian Jewish origin. He started long after the lines of the conflict had crystallized, so he's not just a wave rider. His whole thing is that in every diaspora, the Jews that got diasporaed were the ones that were easiest to grab, the city dwellers. But the rural Jews were a hassle to grab, and so mostly could avoid the most brutal Assyrian, Babylonian, and Roman ethnic cleanses.
כאשר אימפריה תופסת את השלטון בארץ, היא מגלה את האליטה ומשאירה את עם הארץ. וזה מה שקרה גם אחרי חורבן בית ראשון וגם אחרי חורבן בית שני. אלו כל כך אהבו את הארץ שהיו מוכנים לוותר על הדת, אבל רק בגלל שהיה להם סדר עדיפות הארץ או הדת, העדיפו את הארץ.
He estimates that 85 to 90% of modern Palestinians are descended from Jews who converted to Islam. His even wilder claim is that half of them secretly know it.
אבא שלי, זכרו לברכה, היה בבית חולים, היה מימי אחרון שלו. ספר לי, אמר לי, אני אגיד לך לעשות, אבא, אל תגיד לאף אחד, אני יהודי. זה ביני ובינך, זה הסוף.
אז איך נודע לך שאתה יהודי?
אני ידע לי מהסבא של סבא שלי. היו מסגרים בבית כל הזמן, בסתר.
سيد محمد عبد العزيز عواد محمد سليمان كوازبة 8 أنا عارف من جدودي.
מירו רואה בבני הכפר קוזיבה את צאצאיו של בר כוכבא.
בר כוכבא זה שם שנתנו לו אחר כך, אבל השם שלו האמיתי זה בן קוזיבה, אבן קוזיבה.
כן.
ابن كوزيبة.
كوزيبة. وين مواليد وين انت؟ مواليد سعير. الحين بتعرف مثلا جدك منين اجى؟
لا والله لا جدي بس بقول جد الكوازبة كان يهودي واسلم.
שמעתם?
כמה אנשים יש בשבט?
בשבט יש הרבה. 3,000, 4,000 ומשהו.
וכולם יהודים?
כן, כולם עושה יהודים. בסוף בגלל לא היה להם מה לעשות, וזה תסלמו, אתה יודע, זה לפני מאות שנים, לא היום, זה לא דבר חדש. למשל, אני בשבת, אנחנו לא היו מדליקים אש. אמא שלי וסבתא שלי, אני זוכר, זה ילד, יעני.
Wow. Also, while the majority of this converting took place about 1,000 years ago, much happened more recently, according to him. And according to Rabbi Dov Stein, another guy who's keeping Palestinian Israelism alive, said they have documented mezuzahs to fill in family names like Makamra, which allegedly means winemaker.
כמחצית מתושבי יטא הם מחמולת המחמרה שפירושה עושה היין רחמנא ליצלן. היין הוא בתכלית האיסור באסלאם.
יש ביטא חמולות גדולות שההתאסלמות שלהם היא מאוחרת. אי לכך נשארו יותר מנהגים, נשאר יותר ידע, נשארו יותר חפצים עדיין מהיהדות, ויש הרבה סיפורים גם כן.
90% מהכפר הם במקור יהודים.
מדובר פה על 60 או 70 אלף אדם בכפר. מה שידוע לכל הכפר שם החמרה, אם במקור יהודי וידוע לכל הכפר.
And very interestingly, the village of Sakhnin, which was a Jewish village with a functioning synagogue, reported to have been converted only 200 years ago, where the people are aware of their Hebraic origins.
אנחנו יודעים למשל שעד לפני כנראה 200 שנה, הכפר סכנין היה כפר יהודי, היה לו בית כנסת פעיל. וגם אז קרה תהליך של איסלום של הכפר הזה, תחת הלחץ השלטונות הטורקיים, והיום הכפר מזדהה ככפר ערבי, למרות שבני הכפר יודעים שהם במוצא יהודי.
Okay. You mad yet? This is about to make people very mad. But I am quoting Wikipedia here, which is paraphrasing Misnai, who's an Israeli Jew, his book, Brother Shall Not Lift Sword Against Brother. Here it goes. The primary sin of Zionism, according to Misnai, is the suppression of the historic truth about the Jewish origins of the majority of Palestinians, and ignoring his findings and its ramifications. End quote. Further, in his booklet, The Engagement, which is linked below, Zvi writes, "The time is now ripe for the Zionist movement to continue its historic role and enable the real return, this of the Palestinians to their original nation. Such a return shall take place on a national basis without any religious coercion, according to the Jewish law relevant in these circumstances." End quote. Sheesh. Now, don't confuse Zvi for some bleeding heart anti-Zionist. His ideal solution to the conflict is a one-state solution in which the majority of Palestinians re-embrace said lost Judaism to maintain a Jewish majority. Because of this, weird heterodox, we'll say, understanding of the conflict, he's been heavily criticized by both Jews and Muslims. Despite being disliked by just about everyone, his findings are interesting. He's documented all type of crypto customs very similar to the Anusim and other places. Candles, tefillin, seventh-day circumcision, sitting Shiva for 7 days as opposed to 3.
كان يورجينا كيف نعمل لما بتضايق واحد، لما واحد بيمرض، لما واحد بيصير فيه شيء كنا نربطه.
וגם על טקס החליצה הן יודעות לספר.
معلوم أولادي بس هذه نفس
إذا هي بدها شو لو بدوش بعدين ببقى
هذا هو،
بس في الأصل هو اللي أقول واحد يجي.
معلوم ما واحد بيفوت عليه غيره.
الكبور ما بقيت تولع فيه الشمع الضوء.
لا نولع نهار الخليه يسود يمه بس.
أيوه יש להם מקווה מיוחד.
בתוך הבית מזוזה מוסתרת מתחת לכוננית. והתפילין בתוך גרביים בארון.
זה בדרך לבית.
كل واحد ما بلش يعني انا بتكلم معه وانا بتكلم معه كل واحد بعطي الثاني. صعب جدا الواحد ينسى دينه وينسى عاداته وتقاليده وكل شيء.
والعيال שלך הקטן הוא יודע שהוא يهودي؟
لا
بنسوي سبوع بعد الاسبوع كل وقت نروح يوم نطهر بنسوي فرح او زغارية او خيل بتلعب او هجن بتلعب او ساعة تصحيحنا او زغارية وانا بقول
Pretty typical stuff, but I will note these guys are not crypto.
ואתה פנית לרבנות לגיור?
לא, אני לא אתגייר קודם כל. אם אני יהודי, איך אתה רוצה להתגייר? אני לא יכול להתגייר. אני יכול לעזוב בתשובה.
They're Muslim, and it's much easier to be Jewy as a Muslim than Jewy as a Christian. So what happened? How did this go from an idea pushed by Israeli presidents and prime ministers to unmentionable? Well, there are some obvious reasons. The adversarial relationship between Israelis and Palestinians has made any attempt to broadcast shared origins pretty unpopular on both sides.
عندك أصول يهودية أو هل عندك أجداد يهودية لحد علمك؟ لا no.
לא שאתם יודעים.
Okay. Jewish? No. لا.
No.
No?
No, we haven't grandfathers from Jewish or Christians.
Jewish? No. في عندكم أصول يهودية؟ No.
No?
No. يهود لا.
Excluding Palestinians from embracing Jewish heritage was also codified into Israeli law in 2005, when Palestinians were explicitly excluded from the law of return, even if they convert or marry a Jew. Because I guess they're worried about Palestinians mass converting. It wouldn't happen. Bad law, in my opinion. Oof. Is it foo? No. The studies I've seen seem to indicate there's not really crazy genetic differences.
A landmark study in 2001, conducted by Antonio Arnaiz Villena and his team, has shed light on the genetic roots of the Palestinians. This study analyzed the human leukocyte antigen, or HLA, gene variability in Palestinians. HLA genes are vital for the immune system and are highly variable, making them excellent markers for studying genetic relationships. By comparing the HLA genes of Palestinians with those of other Mediterranean populations, the researchers found something remarkable. Palestinians are genetically very close to Jews and other populations in the Middle East. In 2017, a collaborative effort between Harvard and MIT researchers analyzed genome-wide DNA data from both groups, revealing a shared genetic ancestry that dates back to the Bronze Age, approximately 4,000 years ago.
All the genetic testing done shows there's a significant connection with various degrees of expected admixture, and Zvi and others have credibly demonstrated that there is at least some historic validity. There are 3 studies Zvi likes, one that indicates diaspora Jews, Palestinian Jews, and Palestinians proper all originated from the same core population.
המחקר בהשתתפות פרופסור מרינה פיירמן ודוקטור דבורה פילון מוכיח שהפלסטינים והיהודים מוצאם מהכורדים של ארם נהריים, מכורתו של אברהם אבינו.
זה נכון, זה נכון. זאת אומרת, אותם הקרומוזומים יכולים להופיע אצל יהודים אשכנזים ואצל פלסטינים.
ואם לא די בכך, מסתבר שישנם גם פלסטינים הנושאים את גן הכהנים.
מעניין שהקרומוזום הזה שאנחנו רואים אותו פה באמצע, הוא הקרומוזום שנקרא הקרומוזום של הכהנים. אבל אנחנו רואים פה שגם אצל ערבים אנחנו מוצאים את הקרומוזום הזה.
כלומר, יש פלסטינאים שהם בעצם כהנים.
גנטית.
Another one was part of a Spanish immunology study that showed Jews and Palestinians have the same immune system quirks. And in that same vein, one last one that shows Palestinians and Jews are the only groups to suffer from a weird, rare, inherited deafness syndrome. So yeah, there are other studies too, but you know, I'm not a geneticist. So, but you know, I do know that, you know, your genes don't make you Jewish, of course. Just like the Yabir from the last video, regardless of your original heritage, if you've practiced Islam for hundreds of years, a genetic test isn't going to change your mind. Not that I'm encouraging anyone to change their mind either, for the record. Well, okay. Well, this is the template for these videos. How are they today? Well, not good. It doesn't really change anything, right? Israel doesn't want them, and they don't want Judaism, regardless of any shared ancestry. I guess the only thing this does is make everything feel a little bit more sad.
במדינה שבה החדשות מתיישנות במהירות ואירועים אלימים מתחלפים בקצב מסחרר, טבעי שהלב נאטם. את מי זה בכלל מעניין אם מחמוד ממוצא יהודי?
Anyway, if you made it to the end of this, I salute you. If you haven't yelled at me in the comments yet, feel free. Peace.
Mahmoud Abbas. He's the head of the Palestinians.
Yeah.
You want to tell me that he might be Jewish?
Not only Jewish, he is descendant of a rabbi. Almost all the senior leadership of the Fatah are of Jewish origin. I can give you details later. About the Hamas, it's not far from this. And investigating almost every stone that I raised, I found a Jew beneath it.